The Grand Galactic Council Hall was built to make visitors feel small. Its ceiling rose higher than most mountains, layered with floating rings of light that slowly turned like silent stars. The floor was smooth crystal, reflecting the shapes of hundreds of alien delegates seated in perfect circles. Each species had its own platform, its own symbols of power, its own guards. At the very center stood a single figure. A human. He did not wear armor. He did not carry a weapon. His clothes were simple, dark, and clean. His hands rested calmly at his sides. His face showed no fear, no anger, no pride. Around him, the council spoke. Their voices echoed through the hall, sharp, cold, and confident. "The human worlds have grown too independent," said a tall insect-like being, its voice clicking with annoyance. "They trade without permission. They build routes without approval. They ignore council regulations," added a glowing energy form drifting above its seat. "They must be corrected." Many heads turned toward the human representative. Some looked amused, others looked annoyed. A few looked bored. Humans had been members of the Galactic Council for centuries. They were useful, quiet, reliable. They fixed things, they delivered supplies. They stabilized systems no one else wanted to manage. But they were never respected. "The Council has decided," announced the High Speaker, a massive being wrapped in golden robes, "that new restrictions will be placed on all human systems." A projection appeared in the air. Lines of rules, limits on movement. Limits on technology, limits on expansion. The human representative read them slowly. He did not interrupt. He did not argue. The council mistook this silence for weakness. "These measures are for galactic stability," the High Speaker continued. "Humans will comply." "As they always have?" A few delegates laughed softly. At last, the human looked up. His voice was calm, steady, almost gentle. "Humanity has reviewed the council's decision." The hall quieted just a little. "We find it unacceptable," some delegates hissed. Others leaned forward with interest. "You do not get to decide what is acceptable," snapped a reptilian warlord. "You are one species among thousands," the human nodded once. "That is true," he said. "Which is why we will no longer decide together." Confusion rippled through the hall. The High Speaker frowned. "Explain yourself, human." The man took a slow breath. "Effective immediately," he said. "Humanity withdraws from the Galactic Council." Silence fell like a physical weight. Then laughter, loud, mocking, confident. "You withdraw?" one delegate said between laughs. "From the greatest power in the universe? You think you can survive alone?" another sneered. The High Speaker raised a hand, amused. "Let them go. They will return." "They always do." The human did not respond. He simply turned around. Each step echoed across the crystal floor, one step. Then another. No alarm sounded, no guards moved. The council watched as the human representative walked toward the massive doors at the end of the hall. Just before he reached them, he stopped. Without turning back, he spoke one final sentence. "When humanity leaves," he said softly, "we take our systems with us." The doors opened. The human walked out. The doors closed. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a soft chime rang through the hall. A technician froze, staring at their console. "High Speaker," the technician said slowly, "we've lost synchronization with human-managed networks." Another voice called out. "Navigation grid correction just went offline. Energy. Stabilization nodes are dropping one by one." A low hum spread through the chamber as holograms flickered. Trade routes glitched, star maps dimmed. Long-range communication relays lagged by fractions of seconds, small delays, but dangerous ones. The High Speaker stood. "This is temporary," he said sharply. "Humans are bluffing," but even as he spoke, more alerts appeared. A deep space gate failed to align properly. A supply fleet vanished between jumps. An artificial moon drifted slightly off its orbit. Panic did not come all at once. It crept in quietly. A senior council engineer whispered, almost to himself, "The humans maintained these systems." "No," another corrected weakly. "They just assisted." But the data did not lie. Humanity had not just assisted. They had calibrated, balanced, adjusted. They had fixed problems before anyone noticed them. And now they were gone. Far away, beyond council space, a human ship entered warp. Inside, the former representative stood alone, watching stars stretch into lines. A soft light blinked on the console. Status: Human networks disconnected, autonomous mode. Active. He exhaled slowly. Behind him, humanity closed doors it had kept open for centuries. Ahead of him, the galaxy had no idea what it had just lost. And in the Grand Galactic Council Hall, surrounded by power and pride, the universe took its first quiet step toward collapse. The Galactic Council told itself that everything was fine. In the hours after the human departure, officials spoke calmly. Emergency meetings were held. Statements were prepared. The words temporary disruption were repeated again and again like a prayer, but space does not care about confidence. Across the galaxy, small failures began to grow. On the outer trade lanes, a cargo convoy prepared to jump through a standard warp corridor. The calculations looked correct. The route had been stable for hundreds of years. The captain gave the order. The jump went wrong. Not violently, not dramatically, just enough. The ships arrived light years off target, scattered like broken beads. Two collided, one vanished into deep space. The rest sent distress calls that arrived late or not at all. At first, the council marked it as an isolated error. Then it happened again and again. On a mining world near a blue dwarf star, gravity stabilizers began to drift. The planet's tides grew stronger. Oceans flooded coastal cities. Engineers rushed to fix the problem, but the system controls were written in unfamiliar logic, simple, flexible, and adaptive, human logic. The engineers did not know how to speak its language. On another world, a climate dome lost balance. Temperature climbed slowly, hour by hour. Crops withered, people grew uneasy. The local governor demanded help from the council. The council sent experts. They returned confused and silent. Everywhere, the same pattern appeared. Systems still functioned, but without constant human adjustment, they began to slip. Tiny errors stacked on top of each other. Small delays became disasters. The galaxy had been running on invisible hands. Now, those hands were gone. Inside the council chamber, tension replaced laughter. A massive avian delegate slammed a claw against the floor. Why were humans allowed control over core infrastructure? They volunteered, replied an elder scholar species. No one else wanted to work. Because it was boring, another snapped. Because it was endless, the truth hung in the air. Humans did the work no one else valued. They fixed things quietly. They stayed late. They solved problems before they became emergencies, and they never demanded praise. The council had mistaken silence for obedience. More alerts appeared. An ancient defense array near the galactic rim powered down into standby mode. It had protected dozens of worlds from unknown threats beyond mapped space. Its access code was human. A council security officer swallowed hard. We can't wake it? The high speaker's voice was tight. Override it. We can't. Panic began to spread. Not screaming panic, not yet. This was the cold kind, the kind that tightened chests and made voices sharp. Trade guilds demanded answers. Planetary leaders threatened withdrawal. Military fleets reported navigation drift that made coordinated movement dangerous. Still, the council refused to admit the truth. They need us, the high speaker insisted. They will come back, but humans did not come back. Instead, human space went quiet, not dark. Not collapsed, quiet, human worlds closed their borders gently but firmly. Communication channels remained open, but only for basic contact, no system access. No emergency overrides. Human ships continued to travel smoothly, safely along routes no one else could now use. Observers noticed something unsettling. Wherever humans went, space behaved. Where they did not, it slowly unraveled. A junior council analyst finally said what others feared. Human systems weren't centralized, she said. They were personal, adaptive. They learned. They responded. The council stared at her. They weren't machines alone, she continued. They were partnerships. Human minds constantly adjusted them. Silence followed. That night, across the galaxy, artificial suns dimmed slightly, just enough to be noticed. Power grids compensated barely. On a water world, the tides rose higher than predicted. Evacuation sirens echoed across floating cities. On a desert moon, life support pressure dropped by 1%. Then 2. None of it was dramatic enough to force immediate action, but together it formed a pattern, a slow unmaking. In a quiet human system far from council space, a group of engineers watched reports scroll across their screens. They were calm. "We warned them," one said softly. "They didn't listen," another replied. A third looked up at a star map where dozens of distant points flickered red. "Do we intervene?" The eldest among them shook his head. "Not yet." "Why?" "Because they still think they are in control." Back in the council chamber, the high speaker called for a closed session. "No recordings, no broadcasts, only fear." "We underestimated them," he admitted at last. "Humans did not rule by power. They ruled by maintenance," said the scholar quietly. A terrible realization settled over them. Empires could conquer worlds, armies could enforce laws, but only humans had chosen to care for the galaxy itself. And caring, once withdrawn, could not be replaced overnight. As the session ended, another alert chimed. A major jump gate 1 connecting 5 major systems had gone offline for safety reasons. Traffic halted. Markets froze. Panic finally began to show on faces across the chamber. The universe was not collapsing yet, but it was cracking. And somewhere beyond council reach, humanity watched and waited. The first week after the fractures was filled with excuses. The second week was filled with fear. By the third week, denial was no longer possible. Across the galaxy, the failures grew larger and harder to hide. What had once been small delays and quiet errors now became open disasters that no speech or council decree could fix. A major trade world went dark. Its artificial sun flickered, then shut down completely. Emergency systems activated, but they were designed only to buy time, not replace what was lost. Temperatures dropped, crops froze in their fields. Millions crowded into shelters, waiting for help that did not arrive. The council sent engineers. They stood before the control systems and realized they could not even turn the sun back on. The interface responded only to adaptive inputs patterns built to learn from human behavior. Without humans, the system simply waited. Elsewhere, gravity began to misbehave. On a densely populated core world, orbital stations drifted closer to the planet than planned. Not fast enough to crash, not slow enough to ignore. Every hour required correction. Every correction burned fuel that could not be replaced. Military fleets were grounded not by enemies but by uncertainty. Commanders refused to jump through unstable lanes. Fleets meant to protect worlds sat uselessly in space docks. Panic finally reached the public. News spread faster than the council could suppress it. Refugees flooded safer systems, borders closed. Old rivalries ignited as species blamed one another. "This is human sabotage," some shouted. Others argued, "This is council failure." Both were wrong. It was absence. The galaxy had been built on the assumption that humans would always be there, fixing, adjusting, caring without complaint, and now they were not. Inside the Grand Council Hall, the seats began to empty. Some species withdrew their delegates to protect their own worlds. Others demanded emergency authority. Fights broke out, verbal at first, then physical. The High Speaker's voice no longer carried power. Every order came too late. Every solution relied on systems no longer responding. An ancient data archive was finally opened, one sealed centuries ago. Inside were records showing exactly how deeply humanity had been woven into galactic infrastructure. Humans had not just maintained systems. They had designed fail-safes that assumed human presence. They had balanced equations no other minds could intuitively feel. They had adjusted systems based on empathy, not efficiency alone. A council historian spoke with quiet horror. "They didn't build a machine empire," she said. "They built a living one, and living systems, once abandoned, did not simply stop. They decayed." On the edge of known space, an automated defense ring finally powered down. It had held back something old and patient beyond the maps. Long-range sensors detected movement almost immediately. The council panicked. They sent a high-priority message to human space. "Request immediate assistance. Galactic security." At risk, the reply came hours later. Short, calm, request received, under review, no promise, no urgency, just acknowledgement. For the first time in galactic history, the Council waited on humans. More worlds fell into crisis. A water planet lost tidal balance and began to fracture its floating cities. A farming system's weather control collapsed, turning seasons chaotic. Billions suffered not because of war, but because the quiet systems of daily life failed. Anger turned to regret. Delegates who once mocked humanity now whispered apologies in empty halls. They never asked for power, one said bitterly. We gave them responsibility instead, and punished them for it, another replied. At last, the council voted. A full delegation would be sent to human space, not as rulers, not as equals. As beggars? The delegation's ships traveled carefully, avoiding unstable routes. When they entered human-controlled lanes, something remarkable happened. Space smoothed, sensors stabilized. Navigation became easy again. The contrast was impossible to ignore. Human space was calm, not militarized, not chaotic. Just stable, green worlds, clear orbits, flowing trade. The delegation landed on a human station orbiting a blue-green planet. It was not grand, it was functional, warm, alive. They were greeted not by soldiers but by engineers, men and women in simple uniforms. Calm eyes, steady hands. A human leader listened as the delegation spoke. They explained the collapsing systems, the failing worlds, the rising fear. When they finished, silence followed. At last, the human leader spoke. You didn't lose control because we left, he said. You lost control because you never understood what held it together. One delegate bowed deeply. We were wrong, she said. We treated your care as weakness. The human leader nodded once. Care is expensive, he replied. And we paid the cost for centuries. Another delegate asked the question everyone feared. Will you return? The human shook his head. No, the word hit harder than any weapon. But, the human continued, we will not let the galaxy die. Relief washed over the room, but it was cautious. We will help, he said, on our terms, no council authority. No forced compliance, no control? The delegates exchanged looks. They had no choice. They agreed. As the delegation departed, the human leader watched the stars quietly. Behind him, engineers prepared limited interventions not to restore the old order, but to prevent total collapse. Humanity would act again. But this time, they would not hold everything together alone. Far away, the council chamber stood nearly empty. Its power was gone. And the galaxy had learned a painful truth. When humanity walked away, it was not rebellion. It was reality finally revealing what truly mattered. The first human ships did not arrive like saviors. There were no grand announcements, no speeches broadcast across the stars, no flags raised over foreign worlds. They arrived quietly, one ship at a time. Each one went only where it was invited, and every invitation had a price. Across the galaxy, emergency beacons were answered, but not blindly. Human envoys asked questions before acting. They studied systems. They listened to local leaders. They refused commands that came with threats. This is not a rescue, the human envoys said again and again. This is cooperation. Many worlds struggled to accept that. For centuries, the Council had ordered humanity to fix problems. Now, humans asked permission and conditions. On the frozen trade world, human engineers restored the artificial sun. But before they touched the controls, they made the Planetary Council sign a new charter. No forced labor. No punishment for human refusal. Shared authority over the system. The locals agreed without argument. Their people were freezing. Pride meant nothing now. When the sun warmed again, crowds cried openly. Children stood beneath light they thought they had lost forever. On another world, humans refused to intervene at first. The ruling species had once voted loudly against human rights in council chambers. Their world now faced collapsing gravity fields. We remember, the human envoy said calmly. You will wait. They waited 3 days. Long enough to feel fear. Then help came, not as charity, as a lesson. Slowly, the galaxy learned the new rules. Humanity would help, but not carry the weight alone. And never again without respect. Inside human space, debates raged. Some argued that humanity should let the galaxy fall. They made their choice, many said. We should live in peace, others disagreed. If everything collapses, one engineer replied, it will reach us eventually. The final decision was careful and measured. Humanity would stabilize the galaxy but dismantle the Council's old power completely. No central rule. No single authority, only shared responsibility, the Council protested. What remained of it anyway? They sent messages demanding oversight, threatening sanctions that no longer mattered. Humanity ignored them. Instead, they spoke directly to worlds, to communities. To people, a human network replaced the Council's command structure not with laws, but with standards, safety standards. Ethical standards, participation standards, any world could join. Any world could leave, but no world could exploit. The effect was immediate. Worlds that had long suffered under Council politics suddenly found a voice. Smaller species gained access to knowledge humans had once guarded quietly. Engineering schools opened across the stars taught by humans but run locally. Technology was shared, but only if used responsibly. Those who tried to weaponize it found their access cut off without drama. The galaxy did not fall apart anymore. But it did change. And change frightened those who had once ruled. Former Council elites whispered of rebellion. They spoke of restoring order. They blamed humans for humiliating them. Behind closed doors, they planned. They gathered fleet's old ones, poorly maintained, barely functional without human oversight. They chose a target. A neutral system under human protection. They believed humanity would retreat rather than fight. They were wrong. Human ships did not chase glory. They defended calmly, efficiently. Human-designed defenses activated across the system, not overwhelming but precise. Enemy ships found their weapons failing, engines stalling, systems locking them out, no explosions. No mass death, just helpless fleets drifting in space. A human message followed. This ends now, it said. Return home. Or remain where you are. The fleets withdrew. The message spread across the galaxy faster than any council decree ever had. Humanity was not ruling. But it was no longer ignored. In the ruins of the council chamber, a handful of delegates gathered for the last time. The high speaker stood, old and tired. We thought power meant control, he said softly. But humans showed us power was care, no one argued. The council dissolved that day not by force but by irrelevance. Its chambers went dark, its authority faded into history. Across the stars, new alliances formed, not centered on species but on trust. Humanity became something new. Not masters, not servants, but anchors. Where humans worked, systems stabilized. Where humans taught, societies adapted. Where humans walked away, worlds were forced to grow or fail. And for the first time, the galaxy matured. Yet beyond known space, something watched. The ancient presence beyond the old defense ring had felt the change. The stabilizing force returned but differently, stronger, aware, and not alone. It began to move, slowly, patiently, toward a galaxy that no longer hid behind councils, but stood together. Humanity felt it too. Long-range sensors detected the disturbance. Engineers studied the data in silence. One of them finally spoke. The galaxy isn't done testing us, she said. No, another replied. But this time, we're not standing alone. Far beyond the stars, the universe adjusted its balance. And for the first time, it took humanity seriously. The disturbance did not arrive with fire or noise. It arrived as silence. Deep space sensors across dozens of worlds began to fail at the same time. Not break, not explode. They simply stopped reporting anything beyond a certain distance, as if the universe itself had gone quiet. Human engineers noticed first. They always did. At listening stations near the edge of known space, technicians watched their screens fill with empty data. Stars that should have been there were missing. Gravitational readings flattened. Radiation patterns vanished. It was not a void. It was something hiding. Human scientists gathered quietly. No panic, no shouting, just long hours of checking, rechecking, and comparing notes. This isn't natural, one of them said at last. No, another agreed. But it's intelligent. Word spread carefully through the new galactic network. Worlds that trusted humans listened. Worlds that still feared them watched from a distance. The ancient presence was moving. The same force that once circled the galaxy like a sleeping giant. The same force the Council had unknowingly relied on maintained by human hands for centuries. Now it was awake and curious. Humanity did not hide this time. A message went out to every connected world. There is something beyond our borders, the message said. It has noticed us. We do not yet know its intent. Fear rippled through the galaxy. Old stories returned, legends of devourers between stars, of civilizations erased without war, of gods that were not gods at all, just vast intelligences older than memory. Some worlds begged humans to handle it alone. Others demanded weapons. A few suggested sacrifice. Humanity refused all three. Instead, they prepared, not fleets, not armies, but understanding. Human exploration vessels moved toward the silent region, slow, careful, mapped by dozens of redundant systems. Crews were small, calm, and highly trained. These were not soldiers. They were listeners. As the first ship crossed the boundary where sensors went blind, something changed. Gravity bent not violently but deliberately. Space folded in ways that made navigation feel like walking across soft ground instead of hard stone. The crew felt watched, not hunted, observed. Then the ship received a signal, not sound, not light. A pressure in the mind, shared by all aboard? A question. Why are you different? The crew froze but did not flee. The captain responded slowly, choosing each thought with care. We choose cooperation over control. Silence followed. Then another presence joined the first. Then another. Vast intelligences forming a loose awareness around the ship. You abandoned dominance, they said. That is rare. Humanity had no lie ready. So they told the truth. We learned dominance breaks systems, the captain replied. And broken systems eventually break everyone, the presence considered this. Across the galaxy, human-linked instruments recorded the interaction. Not the thoughts, but the changes in space. Energy flows softened, gravitational waves steadied. The ancient thing was not hostile, it was testing. It revealed fragments of itself, not a single being but a network older than stars. A caretaker intelligence that once guided young galaxies until it learned that intervention often caused more harm than good. So it withdrew, watched, waited. Humanity was the first species in this galaxy to grow without trying to rule everything. That confused it. You repair without owning, it said. You teach without ruling. Yes, the captain replied. Because we know what it's like to be ruled, that answer mattered. The presence shifted again. It extended perception deeper into human history, not invading but observing what humans offered freely. It saw wars, failures, cruelty, but it also saw restraint. It saw humans walk away from power when power became poison. That moment, the silent walkout echoed through the presence like a signal flare. You changed the balance, it said. The galaxy stabilized. We didn't do it alone, the captain answered. Others chose to change too. That was the truth. The presence withdrew, slightly, not leaving, but stepping back. We will continue to observe, it said. Not as judges. The ship was released. When it crossed back into known space, sensors came alive again. Data flooded in. The silence lifted. Humanity shared everything they learned. They did not hide the encounter. Some worlds panicked. Others felt awe. A few finally understood. The galaxy was no longer a playground for empires. It was a shared responsibility under watchful eyes far older than politics. Former council species struggled with this most of all. They had built their identities on command and hierarchy. Now the universe itself favored balance. Humanity became a reference point, not a ruler, but a measure. Worlds asked, what would humans do? And sometimes humans answered honestly. We don't know, but we'll figure it out together. The ancient presence remained at the edge of awareness, waiting, not for humanity to fail, but to see if they would stay true when tested again. And that test was already forming. In the dark spaces beyond mapped stars, something else stirred, something that did not observe, something that consumed. The ancient caretaker noticed it too. And for the first time in eons, it reached inward, toward the galaxy, toward humanity. Not with a command, but with a warning. The universe was not finished. And the next challenge would require more than walking away. It would require standing together. The warning did not come as fear, it came as clarity. Across human space and beyond, scientists received the same data patterns within minutes of each other. Not identical messages, but aligned understanding. The ancient caretaker was not speaking directly, this time it was pointing. Something vast was moving, not slowly, not carefully. It was consuming stars the way fire eats dry grass. Whole systems went dark at the edge of the galaxy, no explosions. No debris fields, just absence. Gravity collapsed inward, then vanished. Light bent, then disappeared. This was not a test. This was an ending. Humanity did not call an emergency council. They did something different. They opened every channel. Every world, every species. Every outpost, no matter how small. This threat does not care who rules, the human message said. It does not fear fleets. It does not negotiate. If we stand apart, we fall apart. Some worlds hesitated. Old wounds still hurt. Old pride still whispered. But the stars going dark spoke louder. For the first time in galactic history, there was no single command center, no hierarchy. Instead, there was a network, shared maps, shared research, shared defense planning. Human engineers worked beside alien scientists who once voted against them. There were no speeches about forgiveness. Only quiet cooperation. The ancient caretaker watched. It did not interfere, it observed. The consuming force called the devourer by some, the silence by others, did not think like life. It followed pressure gradients in space-time, feeding on unstable systems. Humanity recognized the pattern. It eats in balance, one human physicist said, which means the galaxy itself taught it how to survive. That truth was uncomfortable. Empires had created instability for centuries. Now the bill had arrived. The solution was not a weapon. It was harmony. Humans proposed something radical. Instead of concentrating power or energy, they spread it. Instead of building massive defenses, they stabilized systems in the devourer's path. Gravity fields balanced. Energy flows smoothed. Trade routes reorganized to reduce stress on space-time. Entire worlds volunteered to shut down dangerous technologies temporarily. Not because humans ordered them, but because they trusted the process. The devourer slowed, not stopped, but confused. Where it expected collapse, it found balance. Where it expected weakness, it found cooperation. The ancient caretaker finally acted, not as a ruler, as a guide. It amplified the stabilizing efforts, strengthened the bonds between systems. Not controlling, supporting. The galaxy felt it like a deep breath. Human ships positioned themselves at key points not to fight, but to adjust, to repair, to reinforce. Some ships were lost. Human crews died quietly doing their jobs. There were no statues, no songs, just names recorded and remembered. The devourer reached the edge of human space and stopped. It could not feed. The systems were too stable, too connected. It lingered, pressing against the balance like a storm against a mountain. Then, slowly, it drifted away seeking easier ground. The galaxy did not cheer, it rested. The ancient caretaker withdrew again, satisfied, not impressed by power, but by restraint. In the empty council chamber, a single light turned on. Not for rule, for record. Humanity archived the era of councils, empires, and collapse, not as a warning, but as a lesson. Power without care destroys. Unity without control endures. The galaxy moved forward, not under one flag, but under a shared understanding. And somewhere between the stars, the universe adjusted its expectations. Humanity was no longer something to manage, it was something to trust. Not because they were perfect, but because when the moment came, they stood together,